freedom and free will. It's Independence Day. You're with 37 South on Independence Day. I had to work today, so I wasn't able to celebrate for most of the day, but I'm on my way home from work, and I took a few notes the other day because and I'm probably going to be adjusting this camera, and it's going to be bouncing around all over the place, so sorry about that. But like I was saying, I took a few notes the other day. I was going to do this video and decided not to, and then I just decided to go ahead and do it on my way home. I've probably got several kids at home waiting for me to take them to some fireworks, so I wanted to go ahead and just get it taken care of now before I got there, because I won't get the opportunity if I go home. So anyway, here it is. The Constitution went into effect March 4th, 1789. 2 years later, it was ratified on December 15th, 1791. Now, what I'm going to do is just go over. I'm going to bring up a couple or a few from the first 10 amendments, and then I'm going to move on to some other thoughts, and I'll get to where I'm going in this video here shortly. So I'll try and speed it up and make it quick. Number one, freedom of religion. That includes speech, freedom of religion, speech, and press. Freedom of assembly and right to petition. Now, the separation of church and state was meant to protect the church, not the state. Just be aware of that, and that's something of note. The Second Amendment, which is the right to bear arms, you know that, because militias are necessary and needed. The Second Amendment gives you the right to bear arms, and the Second Amendment protects all the other amendments. We know that. From there, I want to jump down to the Ninth Amendment, which I don't think a lot of people is aware of. The Ninth Amendment, which basically says that not all of the freedoms, not all of people's freedoms are added to the Constitution. But that doesn't mean that they don't have those freedoms. It doesn't mean that Americans do not have those rights. It just means that they didn't add all of them into the Constitution. I guess I just want to go ahead and switch over and bring up three amendments that were added later to the Constitution. Well, and I'll just get into those. The 13th Amendment on January, and now remember that March 4th, 1789 is when the Constitution went into effect. January 31st, 1865 made slavery illegal and involuntary servitude illegal except as punishment. So 76 years later, slavery was made illegal. That's the 13th Amendment. The 15th Amendment on February 26th of 1869, this is 80 years later, gave African Americans and ex-slaves the right to vote. Also, it ordered that no one should be unable to vote because of their skin color. That's 80 years later, after the Constitution was put into effect. The 19th Amendment, June 4th of 1919, gave women the right to vote. That's 130 years later from the time that the Constitution went into effect. My point is that our country's history is flawed and scarred, but I guess what I'm trying to say is we had to start somewhere. The Constitution wasn't perfect at that time, and it's still not perfect, but we had to start somewhere, and it took 76 years, 80 years, and 130 years later to put into effect to ratify these other amendments. So I just wanted to, a lot of people either aren't aware of that time period. You know, it just wasn't, you know, it wasn't a perfect constitution from the get-go. It was the best we had at that time, and it was a step towards those freedoms. I guess that's the point. It was a step towards the freedoms that we have nowadays. Turn this fan off. So I got home and I went to edit the video, and I was going to throw it up on YouTube before it got too late, and I realized that I went into a huge long rant, and I just decided to cut that out. That's a discussion for another time, and it's not a discussion that I'm shying away from or I'm afraid to have, but it's just a discussion for another time. So I'm going to just try and sum it up. I'm going to try and sum it up, and then I'll just shoot you back to the end of the video, and we'll be done with it. Here's it in a nutshell. God, our freedoms are given to us by God. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's it. The right to life is given to every human upon conception until God decides to remove you from this earth. God gives us the freedom of choice also. It's called free will. The Bible is full of scripture to support that fact. And although life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is our right along with our republic, it's our responsibility to keep it. And it may very well be that we have to do that in the future with the use of firearms and by the use of force, as we've seen in the past. So that's it. That's the sum of the rant I went on, and I won't go into that any further. Back to the end of the video and carry on. My intention wasn't to go off on a tangent or a rant. Just a few thoughts, and I'm just gonna cut it off. I'm just gonna cut it off there and go take my kids to see some fireworks and tell you guys to have the rest of a happy Independence Day. Enjoy your freedom, and remember that these freedoms, you're enjoying these freedoms today because God has given you those freedoms. And as far as the United States of America and our Constitution, a bunch of people with a bunch of guns fought for them and earned them and demanded those freedoms. So remember that, and have a good day. We'll see you.
Do a bunch of them now.